Welcome to another edition of Schoology Leap. Today a special edition. We're usually the third Thursday of every month, but today we're coming at you on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you all as we venture into the summer. My name is Bradley Kemp, Senior Instructional Designer here at Schoology, and I'm joined today with my colleague Allison Love. Now, Allison, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I'm trying to remember your title. It's a little fuzzy, but I think it's something like Queen of Schoology.
Totally.
Yeah, something like that.
Absolutely correct. People call me, my team, experts of everything.
Okay. So what team are you on? Give me a little context.
I'm a part of the product engagement team at Schoology. I am manager of product engagement, and I've probably worked with a ton of people on the line here, formerly known as an implementation specialist. So I helped you get up and running, talked to you about permissions, kind of consulted on best practices for setup and rollout. So
while everyone feels that they're done after that stage, you're not quite done, especially as we head to the summer. Okay, a few weeks, we want you to put your feet up for a little bit, maybe have a pina colada or three. But then it's time to get back to work again. So today we're going to be talking about ending the school year, all the things that you might need to do to round things out, things like saving courses and
making sure teachers don't panic.
Make sure teachers don't panic, everyone is cool, and then things you need to do over the summer to roll over the data, and then what you need to get started. We're going to try to encapsulate all of that really quickly. So welcome everyone, and as you're doing this, let's just get to know each other a little bit. We're going to be using that questions panel you see in GoToWebinar this whole time. We'll be taking your questions. To give you a sense of things, there are several hundred of you on the line, so please don't take it personally if we don't get to your question. The nice thing is that we do have a record of all your questions. So let's just give that a whirl. Chat in there if you have any big initiatives going on at your school this summer that somehow have a touch point with instructional technology or the education technology systems that you're using. I mean, that could be an SIS change, it could be new tablets coming in, something like that. Just let us know about that and we'll be good. Implementing PowerSchool. Kickoff call today, that's awesome, very cool.
One-run programs.
Digital portfolios, that's a really good thing to start with. I hope you are enjoying Schoology portfolios. That's our on the profile picture. 5,000 Chromebooks. Good number. Nice. Great to see all this happening. Well, I'm going to share my screen here with you. Let me know if you can see that. You should see my PowerPoint up, or my Google Slides, rather. So keep using that today, that questions panel, and this is going to be talking about ending the year and all the things that happen then after that. If you want to take this conversation out on the web, feel free to use the Schoology hashtag Schoology Leap on Twitter. I am BRDKMP out there if you want to connect with me. And Allison, we're going to do the quick and dirty version basically here on this webinar, but you could really delve quite deep into any of these topics. So we have created a Schoology course that is going to be all summer long. We're going to release it. I think we're doing that next week, right?
Yep.
And tomorrow we're going to send you a follow-up email with a recording of this webinar and a short, I think it's a one-question form, to request to be part of this totally free course for system administrators on everything they need to do to round out and start the year with like excruciating detail.
Yeah, and we totally recommend you taking this course. It's self-paced. You can do it at your, whenever you can find a moment at the end of the year. We know those are few and far between.
Which is why it's self-paced. You can do it in your pajamas,
Exactly.
at home.
So it gives you all the details. There's links to resources. There's checklists. Just so you really are prepared for the end of the year and ready for the beginning of the next year.
Absolutely. And to give you, we did this last year, and to give you a sense of of what happened there. Whoop, hold on, Google Slides. Settle down. people who took this course last year did a little self-evaluation before and afterwards. And beforehand, if they were rating themselves 0 to 5 of how prepared they were to take care of all things Schoology, the majority of people rated themselves really low before they took the course. And after the course, this is how people rated themselves. So the course really just propels you forward, reduces the amount of tickets you need to make with us or meetings that you set up with us. I mean, as much as I like you, Allison, I mean, you're one of my favorite people here, I still dislike meetings more. So if I can prevent being in a meeting by taking a quick course, it takes maybe a couple hours to go through at your own time. I'm a happy camper. So look for that email that's coming tomorrow with the form to join this course and a recording of this webinar. There are several hundred of you. I'm going to propose, I haven't done this before, but we're going to give it a try, a question format. You don't have to be strict about this. What's nice about this GoToWebinar is we get a spreadsheet of all the questions you've asked the whole time. So if you can pre-pen questions you have for us with an admin question or instructor-related question, or maybe a strategic-related question, it doesn't really have to do with all the features and functionality, just more about strategic planning. Right, strategic before your question. If it's having to do with the SIS or something like that, technical, to prepend your question with technical. Or if it's just a question you have that you don't need to answer it now, that you just want us to contact you about, write follow-up, and then your question. And then we will just go through that spreadsheet and search it and pull out those questions later and get in touch with you. So we'll give that a whirl. We'll see how good we are. I'm kind of excited about this format. I haven't tried this before, but I think this will help us with the now 230 people on the call. So let's dig into it, right? This is our agenda. We're going to talk about final grades, course archives, then a system setting, like sort of health check, I would call it, then actually ending the year, anything you can do with Schoology during the summer, whether it's more formal stuff or informal stuff, and then looking at beginning the year and what planning goes into that. So let's first talk about final grades. Now, not all of you are using Schoology as a gradebook of record. Some of you are, especially those who use like an SIS integration. There are common, I'd call them verification settings. Some people might call them troubleshooting. If someone says, well, my students are seeing a different grade than what I'm seeing, and we're just now noticing it as we're verifying all of our final grades, what are some things that you can ask your teachers or instructors, faculty members to do in the gradebook just to make sure those grades are correct? Allison, what's our favorite tool of all time?
The magical bulk edit.
The magical bulk edit tool. And what let's jump into Schoology and look at this. But in the magic bulk edit, we're going to be looking for a few things. Published settings, we're going to look at grading categories, the grading period work is associated with, and some things that affect points. Let's jump in, right?
Yeah, and prior to coming to Schoology, I taught 4th grade and 3rd grade. And I was a bit of a procrastinator. Bradley doesn't believe it.
It's hard to believe now.
Yeah. And so I know what it's like to be super busy at the end of the year and you're trying to put some final grades in and things you've had, you have some stacks on your paper or on your desk and you want to make sure those grades are in. And you can kind of freak out towards the end of the term when something isn't calculating right or, my students aren't seeing it. So this magical bulk edit is really going to be helpful to point that out to your instructors.
And as you said, this is probably something you should be doing all year. But, I just talked to my brother who's a college professor, and he sounded like, I don't know, he had been dragged out of bed by zombies or something like that. Because, I stayed up till 3 in the morning grading papers that I had been, trying not to.
Yeah.
So that is when these things come up. And as you see us looking to both sides, Allison and I have extra monitors with all of your questions there. That's what we're looking at on the side. So where are we here? in your grade book, you have all of your different quarters and things like that, all your semesters. Okay, so that always defaults to the current one, but it's good to know that this toggle is here in case you need to change anything. The bulk edit tool we're talking about is under these 3 dots. And this is literally listing out everything in your course, grouped by the grading period, and then ordered alphabetically, if that's the order you're looking at. One thing, it's sort of always a teachable moment in here. A really nice best practice as you get more familiar with Schoology is actually setting up a naming convention in your course with, Unit 1, Lesson 3, because if you do that, then this alphabetical order will actually show all of your assignments in the order that they happen in the course. This is a little tidbit. Keep that in their back pocket for later. But so Allison, what are the common mistakes we see people make, or like gotchas?
So a lot of people might reach out, instructors might reach out that something isn't showing up in the grade book and they know that they have put it there. One big thing to watch out for is the grading period, making sure that that is associated to the correct grading period. Can you click on that drop down there?
Sure.
Great. A big common mistake is putting it at the no grading period. So it's not going to show up in the current view that an instructor would think it's going to show up in.
And if you have something that is no grading period, for instance, if I take this example, let's say I take this example here, this discussion, no grading period. If anyone has that, a good best practice or a really quick tip is just scroll all the way down. If you see anything in this category, well, that could be a really easy mistake. Those mistakes often happen when a teacher or a faculty member creates some course materials and brings it into the course maybe before the course actually started, or between grading periods if your grading periods actually don't touch each other, if they're not totally adjacent. For instance, if there's a winter break in there and they added something, it might go into a no grading period category because there wasn't an active grading period at the time. So that's a really good tip. Why else wouldn't something show up in my grade book? And I swear I had this assignment. Where is it? Or I see the assignment, but I don't think it's calculating into the overall grade.
Something else to look at is the category for ungraded.
So we see that in my categories, I said participation, homework, things like that. And if I keep going down, though, I see this one, ungraded. So that does what it says?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And sometimes this is intentional, though, like for some sort of diagnostic quiz or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yes, but you definitely want the intentional grades to factor into an overall score. So you're going to want to make sure that assignment
this was intentional.
Exactly.
So notice that this does have some points associated with the rubric, but the ungraded trumps everything else.
Exactly.
Right.
And then I think one of the last things to look out for is that publish sign, the green dot right there. That will show you if something is hidden or not hidden, published, unpublished.
Right. Remember in Schoology, this used to actually say published in one place, but when you turn it on, it said hidden. And sometimes people, I would find, would do that intentionally just because they're trying to organize things, but they didn't realize that that would actually remove it from the grade book.
Totally. And that, well, a big thing is my students can't see it. I need one last assessment and my students can't see it. Directing them to the bulk edit, making sure everything is published is going to be a key in making sure just all the grades are there, all the assignments are assessed and calculating the way you need them to be.
Cool. And so let's talk, I think those are like the big things, right? Published, the categories, the grading periods. Any implications here with people who are not exporting grades from Schoology but are instead syncing to an SIS, like let's say PowerSchool or something like that? This publish button is pretty important as well, right?
Yeah, totally. Every SIS works slightly different. However, this published and unpublished, sometimes depending on your SIS, it might mean that the assignment will not sync if it's unpublished. And then other Other SISs will sync and then maybe it's hidden in the TAC or the hack or for wherever it is visible to the teacher, the home access center. So that publish and unpublish is really going to be key with our SIS integrations.
And usually in all the SIS integrations, how the integration is set up is also through the category. We're often mapping our categories to their categories.
Category and due date.
And due date.
Yeah.
So you'll see in my example here, I'm missing a lot of due dates. What happens if I don't have a due date? Like maybe I'm using student completion rules, so I'm not using due dates because I have a lot of self-paced stuff.
Yeah, and again, I think every SIS is different with their integration, which is, I think, the key takeaway. However, due dates...
If only we built all of those.
Exactly.
Things, so they all work the same, but they work differently.
Exactly, in SIS, yeah. So it's really, really going to be important that instructors watch out for the due dates. I believe it's with our eSchool Plus integration where assignments will sync. If they do not have a due date, they're the last day of the grading period.
Right, so if you're not seeing things where you think they would be, like when you entered the grade, the integration closing that gap put the due date as the last day of the marking period, right?
And then some integrations will not allow assignments to be synced on days where students are not in the building. So if you had a snow day this year, or if you had school canceled for a particular or a winter break, make sure instructors know the due dates must be when students were actively in school, and they will be synced over.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about grading periods and some of those system settings in a little bit too, and take a closer look at that. So that sounds good. If someone has a question about the specific integration piece, if something isn't showing up, should they contact our support desk? Is that the best way to go?
Yes, definitely. Contact our support desk. You can always reach out to your CSM.
Great.
And then just a final note on that, we do have a lot of helpful tool tips for the teacher view when it comes to syncing with our integrations. So I would start there. If an assignment is not in a particular date range, we'll tell you that as well. So kind of start there and then reach out to our team.
And that's really different than, I would say, ending the year last year, is that over this last summer, we added a lot of extra information in the integration to say if there was an error, if there was something missing.
What type of error?
Now we're telling you exactly how to resolve that. So hopefully that will also alleviate a lot of your work as well, the system admins who are on the line today. Very cool. Okay, so I'm good with grades. If I am exporting my grades, right, a teacher could do that here, right? They could export their grades. I don't think there are a lot of use cases for individual teachers to be exporting their grades, unless they're one in an Excel spreadsheet just for their own records, or
I think
it's a kind of like a personal
it's a personal preference.
Right?
I think some people just love having it exported and printed.
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to get away. Well, as of right now, I think people are still in it's a thing of comfort if they're able to see it, download it, and store it. So it's totally, I don't know a lot of organizations that require that or mandate that their staff do exporting.
Because if they were mandating it, they would probably do something like, in this administrative point of view, go to this export area, go to auto exports, right? And then set up an SFTP server, and then actually, in bulk, bring out everyone's grades. For instance, if they had created their own custom integration or something like that, or some sort of bulk load into their SIS. There are not many people who do this, I don't think. Or correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a pretty powerful tool. If you were using Schoology as a gradebook of record, but didn't have an SIS integration necessarily, but you could in bulk bring out all the grades. That includes things like final grades. I think you can select everything specifically that you want, so you don't get a data overload either.
Exactly, and you know, you can work with our team. You can host the SFTP server. We can host it for you. It's totally up to the client if they want to do that. And then you set it up as an automated. This is probably
something, if you're hearing this now and you're like, oh, I want to do that, you probably wanted to actually plan that a while ago so that all the teachers,
right, and
instructors knew that
mm-hmm.
that was the plan.
And it'll pull it out on a whatever automated way that you choose. If you want to do it weekly, if you want to do it daily.
Very cool.
So you can kind of choose that. It's definitely something when we talk about the beginning of the year,
mm-hmm.
Getting ready, this is something that you should set up then. And
right.
just to make sure you have that cadence.
For your plan for the
exactly.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great, great. Now, if someone wanted to know more about this, they might instead contact their CSM because this is more of a big picture strategy.
Totally. Thing. Yeah. And we can send out some help guides. I can chat some in the group because we have some support articles that kind of tell more.
Awesome. Sweet. So let's, I've been monitoring the questions. Let's just take a quick look at that. We have some questions about what's happening this summer with Power Teacher Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going live with everyone, right?
Yes,
there are some people who've already tested it out and made sure that everything is squeaky clean.
Yep. And we actually have clients using it now. We did not roll it out for general availability for everybody because it was mid-year.
Yeah.
And a lot of problems can happen. Yes, exactly. When people switch mid-year, instructors have a new workflow.
Yeah. Anytime I hear the words grades and mid-year in the same sentence, I just get nervous.
So we had a very, very controlled release process for this, and we're looking at mid-June to go live for everybody. So it's good to go and ready to use. When I think something to keep in mind is when your data is rolling over, and when districts are either updating to the new PTP or just turning over to a new version, or just their data is rolling over and they already use it. So
cool. Well, I have some really great questions about then how can Schoology be used in the summer, maybe in a summer school scenario, and I have some great questions about, okay, now we got the grades under control, what about the courses, and please tell me we're saving everything so I don't have to redo this next year. So let's segue to that, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked about the exporting and all of that. Now, there is this thing that happens that your first year of Schoology can give your teachers the heebie-jeebie. There will be this close to the end of the marking period. So in Schoology, let's look at our system settings here, grade settings. At the end of this marking period, June 23rd, about a week beforehand, I think, everyone gets this big banner across the top that says this course is associated with grading periods that are about to end, and it will be archived. And everyone says, what does that mean? Oh my God. So this is something we want to be prepared for, is talking about what archiving is and getting a message out to all of your teachers and faculty that this is going to happen. In some other systems out there, archiving meant that it went away, the course went away, and you could never get it back, or you had to barge into the IT room and demand your course. Not the case in Schoology.
Not at all.
Right, so let's take a look at archiving. And to your point, Allison, these grading periods that control when courses automatically archive, because instructors don't have to do anything with this. Everything happens by itself. That's controlled by this. And as you said earlier, if there was a lot of snow days or something like that, if the marking period was extended or whatever, this is probably a good thing to check now to make sure that the end of the year is still correct in Schoology, so you don't get that message early, right? I just talked to a school that put the last day at the final day of classes, but not the final day of grades. Like there's still another week to get grades in, and that freaked some people out. So just make sure that this is correct here. So if we look at our teacher, and at her course, this course is automatically going to be packaged up and removed from this course window. And I think that's the jarring thing.
Exactly.
Suddenly they say, what happened to my courses? Because maybe they never even read the banner, right? So this drop-down is always showing our active courses, right? we click See All in the bottom right corner. And that takes us, I call this the course management window. And again, we see our current courses. If you have archived courses, you'll see this archive tab, and here are all the past courses I've taught.
Exactly.
Notice that it even shows the date that I taught them in. And this includes all the grades and everything. Everything is packaged here, all the interactions,
Material.
all the comments. Yeah, so I saw a comment, I believe, from Aaron a little bit earlier that's like, our principal really wants everything printed, always just in case. All the grades, everything is archived here as a record. So sometimes you want to show that to your principal, like, no, it's all
exactly.
It's all here.
And even
please don't make me print it.
Yeah, no, definitely not printing the materials. But let's say Aaron's principal needed that to be grade books to be exported.
Sure.
And it's already after the grading period's ended.
Right. And
you
now
can
I'm
still
freaking out that
right. I didn't do it. I didn't export.
Sure.
You can always go into the grade book within your archived sections and then export it then.
Great.
So it's not time bound.
Sweet. That makes me very happy. I feel very relaxed. Now, if this is your first year of Schoology and you don't have any archive courses, if you're trying this at home, you will not see the archive tab here until you actually have archived courses. That's a dynamic button that shows up. So don't worry if you don't see that. It's just that you don't have any archived courses. Okay. Now, this is something, we give a lot of flexibility in Schoology. So, I'm saying that, don't worry, it'll show up. But is there a case where it wouldn't show up? The ability to see archived courses?
Yeah, so it's actually permission-based. So typically,
system admin then.
Yeah, so you can a district can decide what roles they want to be able to access archived. If you've broken up elementary student and secondary student, some divisions don't want their elementary students to go back into other old courses or see old material. So Bradley right here is outlining where this permission is controlled, and that would be view archived courses under the courses section. And
notice that there's also a permission to view upcoming courses. So you usually want both of those on for your instructors in most cases.
Yeah.
I know some of you have some outlying scenarios in non-traditional schools, universities, but this is usually the case. And notice that students have that by default, that turned off. I'm not going to, as a student, I shouldn't go into my archive course and get my quiz for my little sister, basically. Okay. So that is that. Now, although everything is saved in your archives automatically, I think it's a best practice to then also go ahead and save the course to your resources, because the archive area, that's like really an area of record. You don't want to be playing around with there, be tempted to play around with in there. For your course materials, you want to save those to your resources. So if we go back and look at our teacher, what she wants to do here, and I'm saying teacher because this is a sort of a high school scenario, but if you're in college faculty courses, you do things the same way in most cases. Options drop down, save course to resources. It's 2 clicks, it packages up the entire course and saves it over here to the personal resources, and this is where you can restart this course next year. Now, what I recommend doing, if you want to be a superstar, is first create a collection over here. So collections and resources, if you're not familiar with them, I call them super folders. They're like,
filing cabinets.
Filing cabinets. So you see I have my freshman writing collection here, and my whole course is saved to my resources so I can restart it next year, which in the simplest form means you select all the folders and you add it to your new course. Once you get your new course shell, the S is rolled over, bam. Now, there are some more details to consider here, more than what we would really go over in Schoology Leap. So I want to bring your attention to some YouTube videos we have. These are 2 videos, one that is all about saving your course to resources, and those best practices of creating collections and all that stuff. And then a longer video for the fall when you restart your courses. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but this is this is the best here. And I'll put that in the questions area so you all can see that. All right.
And so, Bradley, these would be good for admins to send to faculty and instructors, or do you think this is more of a system admin perspective?
This is all, we've been talking a lot about this system admin things, and we'll continue to do that. But this is really something you want to give to your teachers today. And, and I find, Allison, that even though people aren't restarting their courses right now, giving them this resource now alleviates a lot of anxiety. And then in the summer, they can actually put their feet up and have a margarita
and I think
enjoy.
More than likely, the scenarios I've come across is the admins, I need some resources. I need something to give to my staff.
Yes.
I can't communicate with all them. They're so busy at the end of the year. These are great things to shoot over, put them in a group if you have all your staff there.
Which we recommend doing.
Yep, totally. So just easy tidbits of things to shoot over.
And you know what? If you want to be really, really popular, like,
Bradley himself,
world's greatest boss, here's what you do. You say, hey guys, we're going to actually cancel our PD training the day after school ends when you're like, oh, come back for one more day of PD. Oh, you know what? Watch these videos. Wow.
Yeah.
Popular. That's your ticket. Not that you necessarily have that flexibility, but at least you could do something a little more engaging than just clicking some buttons. All right. And let's take a quick look at our questions here. A great question here regarding the fidelity of the archive courses. Will the grades of inactive students still show up in archive courses?
Yes.
Yes, right?
Yeah. The grades will never disappear. That tab inactive will never disappear.
Yeah. Thank you, Tina. That's a great question. Looking at a few other questions here. Great. So, great question from Mary. What if I want a course to be ongoing? Like I never want it to go away. Sort of similar to the way the groups are there, and they're always there unless you intentionally delete them or archive them. Great question, Mary. We will. We're about to talk about that in the things you can do in the summer. But if, for instance, in a PD course, often the trick with that, while we have this screen up, is in your grading periods. I do find that sometimes people have created grading periods and just added PD to the existing grading periods meant for students. Notice I have another grading period that just says current, or I might say, might name it ongoing. And notice that it ends in 2025. So I've just created something that is always there.
Right.
Similarly, if you look at my other grading periods that I've hidden, I also have a grading period that only says archived, and it only existed in the past. So for certain self-paced courses in PD, I find having a current grading period that's always in the future and an archived grading period that's always in the past allows me to then create a lot of self-paced PD materials and move them more in a manual way to the archived area just by changing the grading period.
And it just allows for consistency.
Yes.
If you create these at the system level, let's say other instructors, or you have a curriculum group that's creating PD, they can always choose that grading period.
Exactly.
And you could actually pull reports on that grading period. So
yeah, sometimes I've
definitely
seen
a best practice.
people tripping over each other a little bit because they've given a little bit too much flexibility, and they're now 10 grading periods in here called Kara's PD, Kelly's PD. It's like, well, that probably wasn't necessary. Just if you go ahead and create those, you're right. And then they can just select them. Nice and easy.
Yep.
Very simple. Okay. Good stuff. We talked about the viewing archives, saving courses. We talked about grading periods and checking those. Let's talk about following along a previous question about those inactive students. Well, how did we inactivate students to begin with? Because it's not just students we want to inactivate. parents, guardians.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. And
Talk to me about this, because if I understand it correctly, there are a few ways we can handle this depending on maybe how big you are or how formal your data is.
Yeah, so there are a couple ways that we would suggest handling inactive students. In Schoology, there's two types. One, and I believe, who was it who mentioned the inactive area within a course? That's more if someone has left the course. So it's an inactive enrollment. What we're talking about here is if you have a group of seniors, a class of seniors, and they went off and graduated.
Right.
You no longer need them in your Schoology system, so we can get rid of their accounts. Now, in Schoology, it's very difficult to delete things, which saves people. Yeah, exactly. So for all intents and purposes, it will be deleted. However, let's say a student leaves your organization and then comes back. You're able to kind of give that student his or her account where they left off.
And is that basically why we use this word inactive instead of delete?
Yes.
Great. So let's take a look at, we can do this here in the manage users area, but we can also do it in bulk too.
Totally.
Let's take a look at this manual area too. I think this helps everyone get a sense of how this works if they haven't done it before.
Yeah, so one thing similar to where were we talking earlier about the dynamic, archive tab, where, Bradley, you didn't have any, if you don't have any archive courses, you're not going to see that archive tab. Inactive is the same way.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So if you're looking at manage users and you're like, well, it's not here, it's because you don't actually have any inactive
It's not just voodoo magic that we have it. Okay.
So I think the best practices that I like to communicate to my clients are using the filtering and filtering by that grad year. Great. Let's say we took the example earlier and we want to get kind of bundle all of the people who are graduating this year and moving on to college. We could filter by that 2017, and then we would have a list of all of those student accounts. You could do, you would filter by student, you could do all schools, and then grad year. You could set that users page to, I believe it's up to 900.
Okay.
So you can kind of increase that depending on the size of your organization.
Great.
And then you'd come over here. And
so this is a demo account, so I have a
really
big class of 2017.
Exactly. Yeah, so we'd come over here and select all, and then that select bulk action there. Oh, you need to be a edit user. Sorry.
I'm in the wrong spot, people. Okay, so filter, roll, I have my students there, grad year, okay, 2017. Good stuff. There's Angela. She's my lowly graduating senior. Oh, school needs some work, people. And then mark inactive.
Exactly.
Right. Let's see what happens. Ooh.
Yep. So you can actually send an alert to Angela saying, your account has been inactive.
Or I can turn that off.
You can turn that off. I always recommend, just to be safe, you never know what's going to happen, keep the grade and attendance data. There's not going to be a limit. It's
like we're not charging anyone for
exactly.
That.
Just keep it. Yeah.
Great.
So
and I can even say graduated if I wanted to.
Exactly. Added a comment.
Great. And then let's see. There she is and graduated. Pretty rocking. So I would see like hundreds of those students here probably.
Exactly. So this is a really great tool. It allows you to kind of do that cleanup quickly, but for some organizations of larger size, this actually isn't.
Yes.
They can't do this very often.
Let me throw a scenario over the fence to you. A little tough one. Okay. Ready? So I'm in a huge school district, and I don't live in Schoology. I just want Schoology to be simple because I'm really dealing with SIS stuff. And, these tools are great, but honestly, I can just export a list of all my graduating seniors from my SIS. Can I just start there?
Absolutely. Okay. So once you have that list, and you can either, let's say you are still of that size, you deal with the SIS, but, it's harder to get that information out of your SIS than it is out of Schoology. Okay. You could export and filter by the graduating seniors from Schoology, or you could just grab that list. So
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that I could export a list of graduating seniors here,
Mm-hmm.
or of everyone, just include the graduation year, do some Excel magic, delete everyone else.
Delete everyone
whatever.
else, and then we're ready to go with that file.
Yeah. Or I could have that export file from my SIS to begin with.
So it totally depends on what's easier for you.
So, you know, this is a little bit of a mind-bending spell, if you will, because whenever I go to import, I'm thinking I'm adding data to the system.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So what are you doing to my universe, Allison? This is what I'm wondering.
Blowing your mind here. We are going to use that import file and put it into the system in order to mark these students inactive.
Oh.
So on the last tab here, you will see delete.
Fascinating.
You will come here and you will upload that file.
Oh, and look, it's the same settings that we saw before.
Exactly. And you'll notice how we have users there and we say mark inactive.
Sweet.
So you can use this tab for a couple things. You can use it for courses and sections, but definitely at the end of the year, we don't recommend getting rid of any courses or sections.
You'd really only do that really in the beginning of the year if you had like a bad data
import
load, right?
Exactly,
and just start over.
Yeah.
It's like your undo button in the beginning of the year, but here we're using it to clear out the data. And so am I right that I literally just need a one-column spreadsheet with user IDs?
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Very cool.
Yeah, super easy.
Love it. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some questions here. Of course, we're in the technical weeds. Great question about what Teresa, you are on the ball today. Teresa says, great, Allison, got my students, but we have been going gung-ho with parents, and we just got rid of all these students, but their parents are all still lingering in the system. And now they're calling me all summer saying, we're getting Schoology notifications, or something like that.
Yeah, you can actually we recently built a feature where you can pull the parent associations to inactive students. So students you've gotten rid of, and you would be able to pull that information and get rid of the parent data.
Is this in the manage users area? Is this where I'm looking for that feature?
Yes. So in your last tab here, yep.
Look at that.
Did you even know about
that? Glory, hallelujah. I kind of forgot that it existed.
Learn something new.
Yes. See, this is why I attend LEAP.
So yeah, you'd be able to export a list of parents with no active students here.
So that gives me the list, and then I do the same thing we just did, and just re-import the file. And
exactly right. And let's say you have parents with multiple students. Parents wouldn't show up in this list if they had multiple students if they're still active.
Okay. So sounds like our bases are covered.
Yeah.
Then I was about to throw you a trick question. It's like, well, actually, you kind of that was it.
Solved all your problems.
Yes, this is also, those of you who see the advisor stuff, yes, this is also the advisor screen. And interestingly enough, we do handle parents and advisors pretty similarly. But just because an advisor doesn't have student associations, you're not going to go delete your advisors because they're probably your guidance counselors and teachers and things like that. So this is only, that piece is only for parents. Okay. This is a common question from Mark asking, okay, we have a lot of grading periods in Schoology now, and is there a way to sort of group them and say that they're all archived? Can I switch those grading periods? Answer is that's not really the way we think about it, right?
Right, and the technical answer is yes. Best practice answer, I would err on the side of no.
Like best practices, I never said yes, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you move, you can move grading, you can reassociate a course to a different grading period. However, that means all the material within that course is now not associated to a grading period.
So now your archives are actually not true archives.
They're not true archives. They don't reflect what happened during that year. Interactions still exist.
But things like overall grades.
Overall grades are not
blown
accurate.
out of the water.
Right, because this material now needs to be associated again with the new grading period.
So I think we did this, was this last summer? We changed this view, so now by default you should only see your current grading periods.
It's either last summer or the summer before.
And you'll only see the past grading periods if you clear this default filter. Yes. And then you'll see all your past grading periods. So we've tried to clean up this view a little bit here. I know that you still see other grading period options when you're creating courses manually. That's usually the one kind of
auto import.
Yeah, that one place that's a little ugly. But we really don't see that screen too much. But anyway, that's the idea. Best practice: don't change the grading periods.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is worth saying that these, as you create grading periods, more grading periods, we'll talk about this when we start the year, but notice I have years, year labels and things like that in my grading period list, like this. All grading period names do need to be unique, right, as you go through.
They need to be unique, and they need to be descriptive. So what year, what semester.
Great.
Well, the best practice is descriptive, but they definitely need to be unique.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And if you're using an integration, often we're just pulling in that
totally. And anyway. If you use an integration, typically, if you need to set up your grading periods before, are we going to hop right into, am I going forward? You can set those up before, and then when we go through the integration steps, we would just map whatever's coming from your SIS into Schoology.
Yeah.
Let's say you need to start, getting things ready now. You want to get those grading periods set. You want to set up the hierarchy. That's totally fine to set up your grading periods.
Even before
today.
Even before my SIS is rolled over.
Totally,
I could actually
totally fine.
Okay.
And we would just map.
So either way is fine.
Yeah.
I could wait on it. Or
let's say you want to wait until your data has rolled over. Okay. We'll just pull it in. So you can create them during that when you're setting up your integration, or set them up before.
And if it's a new integration, we are usually helping with that, right?
Totally, yeah.
Well, let's do a little timeout, a little pause there. Before we've like ruined your whole summer and just skipped to like starting the year again, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the summer a little bit, because we had some nice questions earlier about what can I do with summer school and things like that. So some people do have a grading period in here for summer school, and if those courses, often they're formalized in the SIS, but sometimes I know some schools have decided not to load their summer school courses because not everyone is really using them, and they let teachers just create their courses ad hoc. There is, if I'm correct, we'll see how long I stay correct. At some point, I know I'm going to get nailed. But
what are you doing?
People can create courses, right? But sometimes during the year, if you're loading courses, you may have turned this off.
Yeah.
But we can change these permissions anytime, right?
Totally. I think the big thing with changing the permissions is clear expectations. I think you need to be able to communicate to faculty why you're changing this permission, why they're able to create courses in the middle of the summer versus why they're not allowed to if you have an SIS integration or if you're provisioning from a system level. The biggest thing is expectations.
To help with those expectations, would you maybe just leave this open for like a week or something? Like get your new courses for summer this week.
Yeah, and similar to linking courses, I usually recommend a particular amount of time enabling that permission, so you can set that communication clear.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice practice. And then a lot of people use their groups really heavily during the summer too, to keep communication going, collaboration, maybe
planning.
Yeah, instead of saving your courses to your personal resources, maybe you're saving them to your group resources.
Exactly.
So everyone, my mom was a music teacher, and for a few weeks in the summer, there was like a room in the house we were not allowed to go into because it was like covered in lesson plans. So, and that might be happening in your group resources in a more of a collaborative space during the summer too. What about like marching band? I mean, athletics. Can other students be using this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think groups are a really good resource to use, especially over the summer. They're a little more collaborative, communication. There's no grade book. However, in summer school courses, there are some instances where you do need a grade book. I think one thing to keep in mind is that just because you're using a particular provisioning method during the year, SIS integration, SFTP, let's say your faculty are creating courses,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to use that provisioning method during the summer. You can have both going on at the same time.
Different rules. You can even wear jeans.
Yeah, exactly, yes. So let's say you have your summer school classes in a different system that's not in your SIS. If you
Like
can,
maybe some system that is tracking like credit recovery,
exactly, yeah.
Like
if I can export that, I can just manually import it. Most of the time,
okay, that's interesting.
people can, let's say those students join with an access code. It's usually the smaller number of students, so that communication can be controlled by the faculty member running the course.
Right.
So there's definitely a ton of options. I don't want people to think because they're doing one method, they have to continue that.
I see access codes being good for a club. Like, let's say you have a maker space that is open during the summer. That's part of like a robotics club.
Yep.
You may want to be using all the things in the courses because you do want to assign work and have students turn things in even though things aren't graded. Again, a nice reason to have access codes
yes.
on. So it alleviates your work from the IT side of adding members. Just join with an access code, and that is also something you could flip on and off in your permissions too, right? The use of access codes.
Yep, totally.
Cool.
Yeah, and I would just say if you need data from these courses, just make sure that you're instructing people to use section school code.
What? Hold the phone. Let's put on the brakes here. What did you just say?
Section school code. When you're creating a course here, you have options into section school code or section code.
Okay.
So these are just, in your SIS, you might have a section ID, right? So these are section IDs, and you must use section school code if you want to take data out
if you want to export
of your system.
Stuff.
Yes. So just a tip.
That's a really good one. So section, and from technical level, section code wouldn't need to be unique. I could have like robotics 101 section code 1.
Yeah.
But section school code is a totally unique number, which is why we need it to export, right? Because now we know exactly what section we're talking about.
Yep.
Right?
And section school code is actually unique within your whole organization.
Okay. So for those summer school teachers, if they're creating their own course with that setting expectations, you might even say, use this naming convention like last name, year, subject, something
summer
that
school,
you know is going to be unique.
And then section school code. Yeah,
nice.
Exactly.
Very cool. I like it, Allison. I like it. Okay, we talked about importing for deletions, mind-blowing. I always think of the return on investment here. It's like, don't use Schoology just for the year. Use it during the summer. We talked about creating something like, forever grading periods or current, things like that to facilitate ongoing PD over the summer, things like that. Credit recovery, self-paced options. And that's another thing is the idea long-term. Some places are starting to think of summer school not as come to the school, but you can be working at home, student, and as long as you have an internet connection, and do this work for part of your credit recovery as well in a self-paced course. Yep. If anyone has ideas on that, or you doing something like that, using self-paced courses for credit recovery, let me know in chat. I would love to connect with you later on that and talk about that subject on Leap sometime. Okay, the summer is coming to an end. It's Allison, it's so sad. It's just like blink of an eye, the summer is gone, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, while you're off drinking margaritas, we at Schoology, we will be here. We call it our Summer Slam.
Okay.
So our feet are not up. We are ready to answer questions if they come, but we know summer is ending. It's going to end, and we have to get ready back.
So our summer is the busiest time of year. And another thing exciting that happens during the summer is our user conference, right? So
are you giving
celebrate.
Sessions?
I am giving a I think it's going to be an interesting, very geeky session with Adam Larson.
Cool.
Called How to Hack Your Schoology course. And we're going to show all sorts of things that we don't normally. Like, I would never show any of this stuff for the first time Schoology user. But once you start getting creative, pull up your sleeves, like, it's all the things that, like, did you know Schoology could do this? Click, click, click. So that'll be fun. But really, actually, next, I just want to be in, out and about and answering everyone's questions and helping out and thinking creatively. So I'm more of the informal learner myself.
Great.
Okay, so back to school. Schoology Next is over. You have all of your swag, all these new ideas. You're bursting with inspiration. But let's get your data in there first.
Yeah.
Now, the SIS data, if anything happens, if you are switching to PowerSchool from something else or whatever, should someone just do that on their own?
No.
Just
if you're
blindfold,
yeah,
import, just go. See what happens.
I saw a couple when people, when Bradley asked the question, new initiatives, I saw a couple people that had said they're switching SISs, switching authentication methods. Definitely contact your CSM for some support there. We have people that, can help you, implementation engineers that can help you walk through this process. Let's say this is something you probably do once a year. So you need a refresher. You need, you want someone to walk through it with you. Feel free to call our team.
That's
we
what
would
we're here
recommend
for, right?
calling our team. Just so this is student data, this is staff data, parent data. You need to make sure you do it correctly. So I think Bradley had kind of touched on the planning backwards piece on the slide before.
Yeah.
And just some important dates. We always hear like, okay, well, when do you want to start school? Or when's your first day of school?
And is like first day of school really what we mean when we start planning backwards? Is that the target?
No. You should plan for...
Students will be here in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Which
we're almost done with the
yes. So we want to really plan backwards from when do your faculty, when do your teachers, when do your students need their courses to be set up. Usually there's a planning session, preschool sessions for PD. What dates are those? And then plan backwards from there.
Yeah, and I think that's one place where, just given how complex schools are, one place I've seen places with the best of intentions sometimes get out of sync is that the IT team is just thinking so much about the grading period, and those dates are just ingrained in their minds that they may not have sunk up with the PD team and check when the first in-service day is for PD. So I think that's like the #1 takeaway from this whole thing is connect with whoever is doing back-to-school training and make sure everything is set up and available before then.
Yeah, and typically some people like even to plan ahead of that. And once your data has rolled over to the new school year, you can start that planning. You can start, you can get your data in to the system. How our notifications work, that you won't receive a notification until the course is active. So you don't need to worry about people getting notifications that they're in a course, especially if students are not allowed to see upcoming courses. You should be safe there. So plan ahead is the biggest piece that I can.
And you know what occurs to me, Allison, is a great place while you're planning ahead. It's the Enterprise Leadership Group.
Yes.
If any of you are not part of your system admins and you're not part of our Enterprise Leadership Group, it's a group in Schoology where all of you can connect and ask each other questions, especially like best practice questions, like strategy questions. It's a really great place to connect. So if you don't know about that, you can email me, leap@schoology.com, and we'll get you set up, okay? It has, I think there's something like 800 administrators in that group now.
It's really very fruitful conversations.
Absolutely. Now, if you actually have a support issue, an actual ticket, still go to support. But if you're talking strategy, that's a really great place because, I mean, I learned things from that group myself.
Yeah.
Cool. Same thing with single sign-on. We want to know about that too, right? If you're switching from LDAP to Google SSO, something like that, let us know. Because and this is, when we were talking about this Allison planning, you brought up the really good point of, even if you're doing the same thing, remind all of your faculty and students how they log into school.
Yeah, recirculate that.
It's one of those things that you just wipe out of your mind in the
especially
summer.
After summer. Like everybody needs to, as much as you think people know, and they've been using it for years, recirculate it. Recirculate it.
Very, very cool. Okay, well, we are getting close to the end of this, and one of the last things we have for you is just really the same videos we showed you again. For restarting your courses once you have those empty course shells. This video is just, okay, I may have made this video, but I still think it's the best video ever. On restarting your courses from scratch, because there are a lot of ways to do it, but there is like the surefire way to do it, which is take your sections. If you're linking, link first. Then go into your archive. If you're teaching the same course, you're using the same grade setup, you can copy your gradebook setup from your archive into your new course. So you don't have to do anything. It's like amazing. Since your sections are linked, you're doing that like once, super fast. And then import your content from your resources.
Last.
Because if you have all of your categories and scales already set up in your gradebook, when you import from your resources, it'll actually remap to the categories they were mapped to last year.
And that's similar workflow for SISs. You know, get everything set up first, then bring it in. So it should be.
Bingo.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Allison. Thank you all for attending. If you want to think more creatively about this, come to Schoology next. And we can even sit down and chit-chat together and have a really engaging talk. And I'll tell you all sorts of cool things you can do with Schoology that we won't have time for here. Third Thursday of the month are our normal leaps. Join us there. And till next time, may the 4th be with you all as you enter your summer journey with Schoology. Okay, look for a recording. Tomorrow you'll get an email with the recording and more information about the course that goes over all of this in excruciatingly fun detail. Not excruciating, wait, how do I say fun? Excruciatingly fun detail.
Very detailed.
With a lot of checklists and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so have a great day, everyone.
Happy summer.
Thank you for joining LEAP.